question becomes, what is the process for MAID in Ontario? First, you got to make a formal request. What does a formal request look like? There is a standardized form. It's usually called the Clinician Aid form, and it is basically a form that you have to sign that says you have an irremediable condition with a naturally foreseeable death, and you want to pursue medical assistance. And it has to be witnessed, and I always tell people, do not have your family witness it, do not have like a loved one witness it. It needs to be witnessed by somebody who is not going to benefit from your passing. So usually it can be the mailman if you want. Like it could be anybody who feels comfortable doing it, but they cannot benefit. So I don't usually encourage families. And sometimes people will say to me, well, I don't have anybody to witness it. And so in those cases, people call Dying with Dignity, the organization, and they can send you a volunteer to do the witnessing. Then you have two separate physicians do an assessment. One of those physicians is the person who provides MAID, and one of those is somebody who doesn't. They do it separately, and they both have to agree that you meet the criteria. And then the provision of MAID happens, and it's done by IV, by a nurse or a physician, usually in the home, because it's harder to find places that will agree to admit people for medical assistance in dying. There are ways around it, but usually it's encouraged to be done. So who's eligible? So it's eligible for anybody over 18 who has capacity to make the decision. What does capacity mean? It means I understand the decision I'm making. I know the options in favor of. I know the options against MAID. I know what's going to happen to me if I don't have MAID. I know what's going to happen to me if I do have MAID. I'm comfortable with both those, and I'm prepared to actually move forward. It has to be voluntary. You can't have anybody kind of saying, you should try MAID. You should try MAID. I can't actually tell you how many times a patient has come to me and said to me that they saw their oncologist or they saw their surgeon and their surgeon said to them, I think it's time for you to pursue MAID. That is not what MAID is. That is not how it works. And anybody who's suggesting that to you is ultimately not important. You actually have to have a grievous and irremediable condition. In other words, a life-limiting condition. This is for track 1, right? And you have to have intolerable suffering, whatever that might mean to you. Intolerable suffering does not mean you have to have pain. Does not mean you have to have shortness of breath. You could say that this experience is intolerable for me, and I've had it, right? And you have to be eligible. You have to be an Ontario resident or eligible for public funding of healthcare. Okay? So, what is this waiver of final consent that everybody is talking about? It's a written arrangement that is coordinated with your MAID provider. So one of those two doctors that did the assessment, if they do the assessment and you have a date planned, then from the time that you see the doctor to the date, you can write a waiver and say, if in this time I lose capacity to decide, I still want to proceed. This is not an advance directive. It cannot go in your wills. You cannot say to me today, well, I want to sign that waiver now so that I can have it down the road. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to have a date set for your medical assistance in dying to sign the waiver. So really, it's a very limited waiver for people. And I'll tell you, it's incredibly valuable because I cannot tell you how fearsome people were before this waiver, worrying about the possibility of losing capacity before the procedure. And on the day of their procedure, the doctor coming and saying, to the family, I'm really sorry. They're not capable to tell me that they still want this. I can't give it to them anymore. So this is the way that the system is created to ensure that people who have a date set can still have the procedure even if they're not able to make a final decision at that time. But they have to have actually said to people that they want MAID, the date has to be set, they actually have to be told that they could lose capacity, and if they are suggesting at any way that they don't want it, they're screaming no, they're fighting the procedure, they're fighting everything, it cannot happen. So it is a very limited waiver. It's not a waiver that people typically are able to use. Okay? So who's choosing MAID in Canada? Well, we know that about 4 to 5% of all MAID patients, of all deaths in Canada, are from MAID. We know that Ontario has the highest preponderance of MAID cases. We also know that 75% of people who are choosing MAID are getting palliative care. So this is not like I'm choosing MAID instead of palliative care because my pain and symptoms aren't being managed well, so now just take my life. That's not what this is. And I will explain that more in a second. The main condition of people who choose MAID are cancer, but don't worry, like it goes for everybody. I've had 90-year-olds with heart failure who choose to proceed. We've had, much younger people with heart failure or kidney failure who choose to proceed. And the majority of people who choose MAID are similar in Canada as they were in Oregon, which is white, urban, educated, middle class. Okay. Now here's what's going to blow your mind. And that is, the majority of people who choose MAID are not people who are choosing it because they have pain or other symptoms. They are people who are choosing it because their life no longer feels meaningful to them. They've lost their autonomy. They don't want to be a burden. They feel that there's no more dignity, and I'm done. Jennifer, if I can't live the life that I want to live, let me go. I'm done. It's not for pain. It's not for anything. So in fact, those of us who've been practicing for a while, we talk about the characteristics of a MAID requester. There is, for us, a very clear picture of most people who proceed with it. Those are the people who live life to the fullest, or who are incredibly independent, who have never wanted to be a burden on anybody, who like to do things all on their own, who never like to ask for help. They could be the marathon runners who have also, jumped out of planes and all those other things. They might be the immigrants who had a really hard time as they moved up in Canada and had to do everything on their own, and now they're like, I can't do it. They're the people who are like, I don't want my husband or my wife to change me. If I can't walk to the bathroom on my own, it's not worth it for me. I don't want it. Those are the people who are choosing. It's not the people with intractable pain. Yes, are there people with intractable pain who are choosing MAID? They are, but if 75% of those people are getting palliative care, the majority of them are not having intractable symptoms. The majority of people are doing it because their life purview, the way that they see their lives, does not make sense. So I actually recently saw a patient with ALS at home, and she was begging her family to end her life. I'm done. I'm done. She was like, she immigrated, she was completely independent, she loved crafting and exercising and walking and socializing, and now she can barely talk. She can barely walk, she can barely move her arms, and she says to her family, she's not in terrible pain, not feeling short of breath. This is not the life I want to live. And her daughter is saying to her, but Mom, you're not so bad. There's still things that you can do. And it took like a long time of conversation to really explain to her daughter that this is not about how you look at the glass as half full. For this patient, it's not a glass, right? It's not about a glass as half full or half empty. This is not the glass that I want to have anymore. And if I have to live with this glass, I'd rather not. That is who is mostly choosing MAID. Now, don't think to yourself like, oh, well, I don't fit the bill, so that means that I won't do it. No, that's not the case at all. That's not at all what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that these are the people who are most likely to pursue medical assistance in dying and not even question it. There is a group of people who are not quite like this, who use it as their back pocket. Like, I think I might want MAID. I want to have it in my back pocket just in case. So I'm going to sign the forms, and I'm going to get my assessments, but I'm not going to book a date. I'm going to wait and see how things go. And in my experience, that's great. I've done a zillion assessments for those people. But in my experience, those are not the people who actually proceed. The people who proceed are the people who right up at the very beginning say, Jennifer, I'm done. I don't want this. Okay? That's not to say that you can't use it as a back pocket opportunity. I actually believe firmly that that is a reasonable thing. People feel more comfortable with it. It gives them the option of going both ways. How does that not provide peace of mind to people? Totally understand that. But typically in my experience, those are not the people who eventually choose MAID. And the reason is because we as humans have this amazing ability to adapt. And what we actually don't realize is that we look at somebody right now and we think that ALS patient I was just describing to you, you're like, oh my God, if I was in that position, I would not want to live either. I'm done, forget it. But that person didn't start off that way. That person started off by having a bit of a limp. And they were like, oh, I can manage this limp. And then they started off by like really having weakness in their legs. Like, oh, I can manage this. And then they started off by having difficulty moving their arms. And like, it's okay, I have the help that I need, right? People lose things slowly. And the ability to adapt is remarkable. I had a friend who had ALS. And she was a nurse that I worked with. And when she was actually diagnosed with it, she actually like, you know what? This is like she always used to say, if I ever got ALS, I'm done. And then she was diagnosed, and she was like, you know what, Jennifer, this isn't so bad. I'm okay. And even when she was bedbound and on a breathing apparatus and couldn't move anything, she would say to me, you know what, Jennifer, this isn't so bad. I don't know what people are complaining about. And the reason is because it's remarkable how we have the ability to adapt. And so really the people who have it in their back pocket, they're the people who are like, I'm going to wait and see how well I can adapt to this. It's not the people who are like, I don't even want to try. I'm done, right? Very different worldviews, okay? So let's talk about palliative care and MAID. To be honest, a palliative care doctor would rarely just do a presentation on MAID. And you can say, I haven't done it either. And that's because within palliative care, there is a lot of animosity to MAID providers. And the reason is because they feel there's all kinds of reasons for it. Different philosophical foundations. Palliative care should not be seen as a pathway to MAID. So there are many palliative care units in the city that will not provide MAID. Baycrest doesn't. St. Michael's Hospital doesn't. There's a ton of them that don't. There are people who feel that it's not within the realm of pain and symptom management. It's not being offered. Is it being offered because there's not enough palliative care resources? I think we've debunked a lot of this. I actually think that palliative care allows for conversations about MAID, but not many palliative care providers do it. So I will do assessments, but I won't provide it. So you have the doctors that do the assessments and the doctors who provide it. I have no problem doing an assessment. I don't think I have the heart to provide it. So there is a definite distinction, but the one thing you can be rest assured about is that every palliative care doctor has had somebody talk to them about MAID, and there are resources that they can point you to, even if they're uncomfortable with it, that will allow you to receive it if you need it. So even though there's a little bit of conflict between the two, I do think that MAID is a component of conversations within the palliative care realm that allows us to provide guidance for values and ways that we choose to live the rest of our lives for as long as we can. And then finally, that's it. So I know that took a little bit longer, but I am here for conversations or questions or anything like that. So yeah. So ultimately, before sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
When you have to start a date,
yeah.
How long? Like, does it have to be within a certain amount of time, or 4 years from now?
So the question is, when you set a date, how long does the date have to be in advance? It can't be 3 months. You can't set a date and say, I'll do it in 3 months, let's do it on that day. It has to be within a certain reasonable period of time.
What is that?
Honestly, there's no clear answer, but I would say within the month.
Well, it's not a year.
No, definitely not. And so, really, you can set a date and change your mind at any time. But the doctor who's doing the provision might say the waiver won't count, right? Like if you set a date and say 3 weeks from now I'm going to do it and I've signed the waiver and everything is good, and then you say 3 weeks later, I'm not ready yet. Let's go a little bit longer. You'll have to talk with the provider to decide whether that waiver still stands or not, right? So it's those kinds of things. When you set a date, it used to be that you had a waiting period of 11 days. You had to wait 11 days as your reflection period. That's been taken away. So there's no reflection period anymore. When you set a date, you set a date. But the thing is that it does take about 5 days, usually, in the community in home-based care to get all the medications. You need a nurse to come in and start IVs. You need the doctor to come in. You need the paperwork all set up. It's very comprehensive. And so usually it takes about 5 days. MAID is not a service that is done emergently. And anytime somebody's like, I want MAID tomorrow, it's not going to happen. I want MAID on Monday and today's Thursday, it's not going to happen. This is not an urgent service. This is a service provided for people who truly feel that life is not worth living. And in my experience, people who are like, I want MAID tomorrow because I can't live life like this, they're the people who have symptoms that are not being managed well. And if you adjust their symptoms and try with medications and things like that, they're like, I feel much better, I don't need it anymore, right? The people who really want it are not the people who are saying, I want it tomorrow. The people who really want it are saying, I want it, when can I have it, right? Let's do it as soon as possible. Yeah.
So how long does it take from the first application?
Yeah.
Until you get your okay, and then you can...
So most people will go through the Ontario MAID program. There's a phone number that you can call. Like, if you're not affiliated with a group of doctors that do it. Tammy Ladner, if anybody knows the Tammy Ladner group at Mount Sinai, where I worked for 13 years, they have their own MAID providers. So if you go to Tammy Latner and you say to them, I like MAID, you cannot be referred to most palliative care programs because you want MAID. You are referred to palliative care programs because you want palliative care. And in the provision of palliative care, you might actually say, you know what, I think I want MAID. And in that situation, if it were Tammy Latner, for example, they could do the assessments within a week and have it done usually within a couple of weeks. Even with the Ontario program, it does not take long if somebody really wants it. So in Newmarket, you could actually probably have it done within a week. And sometimes if it's really urgent, like you're really worried and you feel bad and the doctors kind of have everything in place, they can do it within a few days. All the assessments and the procedure. This is not something that has to take 3 months to do. This is something that can be done quickly. It's just not done urgently. That's all. Yeah. Yeah, other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that there are quite a number of reasons that might motivate somebody to proceed with medically assisted death, but they have to pass the examination by 2 physicians or a physician and a nurse.
Yeah. Correct.
How often does that group turn it down to say, I'm sorry?
Almost never. Almost never. So I would say in, I don't know how many MAID assessments I've done, I have only questioned somebody once, and I was worried that it was through depression that they were doing it. But I can't tell you how many MAID assessments I've done in my career now, and almost never has anybody. Every once in a while, somebody will tell me that their MAID assessor told them that it's too soon. And anytime that happens, I get angry. And I actually say to them, you have 2 options. One option is to say, I want another MAID assessor, because there is no such thing as too soon. Too soon is like somebody deciding for you when it's reasonably foreseeable. But there are many MAID providers who will actually say, if you feel your symptoms are intolerable, if you have an irremediable medical condition, and your death is naturally foreseeable, even if that death is 2 years away, it's still naturally foreseeable, you would qualify for MAID, and there is no such thing as too soon. So if somebody says to you it's too soon, then my answer is find another MAID provider or really question them on what they mean by too soon. Does that make sense? But rarely have I experienced in track 1, because I only do track 1, but rarely have I experienced in track 1 somebody actually not being qualified. They are almost always qualified. The other reason why they might not be is competence. Are they capable of making this decision? Can they talk clearly? Do they express themselves well? Honestly, though, part of that decision-making process is if that person has always said, when it comes to my time, I want to be gone. I don't want this. And they're still saying, yeah, I don't like this. I want to be gone. If they can even say that to me, and it's because I don't like the way I'm living right now, that's a pretty good assessment for somebody who's still competent. They just have to be able to say that they want MAID, why they want it, know what the alternatives are, and be able to say that's not for me. Yeah?
How do you deal with dementia?
Yeah, so that is, again, a very hard one because it's very hard to determine whether somebody with dementia has competence. And many times they don't. So many times people with dementia don't have it and they are not eligible. And I have recently told somebody, I'm not convinced that your mother with dementia is capable of making this decision. But it depends on the level of dementia. They might not remember you, but they have always said, and they're still saying, if I can't, I don't want to live this way, right? And you might then say to me, my mother has been saying this for her whole life. She's always said to me, I don't want to live this way if I can't do this. And when you ask her now, she might not remember me from one day to the next, but she can say to me, this is not the life I want to live. So you don't have to be like of sound mind, completely cognitively aware. You can have cognitive some cognitive impairments, but you do have to suggest that you know what's going on and that you still want it. Yeah.
If you put in your will,
Yeah.
if I get dementia, I don't want to live anymore.
No.
Does that make sense?
No.
Why?
The law doesn't allow it. There's no answer to why other than the law does not allow it. Will the law eventually allow it? I bet you we're moving in that direction because the population is aging, people are knowing about this stuff. Will it change the way this has changed? I think so, but no. The answer is no because the law does not allow that. Yeah?
Have you ever counseled patients whose religion does not allow MAID?
Yes. It's an excellent question. I have. So here's the thing about MAID that you don't know. And that is that when your paperwork after you've died, when the paperwork is signed, it is not signed that you had MAID. It is signed that you died of whatever condition precipitated MAID. So it does not say on your death certificate if you have metastatic lung cancer and chose MAID, that you chose MAID. It says that you died of metastatic lung cancer. And so for people who are very worried, who feel like they would like it, but they're in a community of people who would never accept it, to be honest with you, nobody has to know. Not your rabbis, not your priests, not your friends, not your imams, nobody. It doesn't go in if you know and you're completely against it, that's a different story. But then that's where palliative care comes in to help provide the care that you need for whatever time you've got left. But if you are worried about it because you don't want other people to know, it won't even go on your insurance forms. It doesn't affect anything. Does that answer your question a bit?
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Supposing the doctor assesses you and approves you for the procedure.
Yeah.
But then from the time it's approved, what happens if that doctor retires?
To be perfectly honest with you, it's not a bad question. It sounds funny, but it's not a bad question. Because somebody might actually have 2 assessments done, and then 7 months goes by. Your doctor who's approved you is retired, and you're still like, what am I going to do? I don't know who's going to do the assessment. In all honesty, most doctors who do an assessment will only allow that assessment to last for a certain period of time. If you're going to have that in your back pocket, and you're going to hold on to that for 2 years, I promise you it's not going to last. You would need another assessment. You might not need 2, but you would need another assessment by the doctor who's doing the provision. So if the doctor who's doing the provision retires, the new doctor who's doing it would have to do another assessment. Yeah?
I didn't mean in the will, I realized the power of attorney.
No.
Still no?
No. Sorry. You're trying. I give you credit for trying. Yeah.
You were talking about people with dementia who aren't able to communicate effectively but can say they're not.
Yeah.
And wouldn't know who you were the next day. What is the requirement, in your opinion, they're ready to do it? Do they have to be able to sign the name, or is it just your assessment?
So they have to sign the name, but people who are no longer able to use their hands can have somebody else sign their name for them. But you don't actually need to even sign your name. So I tell people, if you just put it in your mouth and use that and make an X on the portion where it is, and the witness sees you do that, you are eligible. So the thing that you have to keep in mind is that capacity waxes and wanes, right? You can be capable of making one decision, but not capable of making another. And so when you do the assessment, you're actually looking at whether somebody is capable of making this decision, not just based on what they're asking and what they understand, but have they been asking for this for a long time? Have they always wanted this? Would they tell their children, if I ever had this problem, please just take me in the back and shoot me? Like, patients will say that to their family, just put a pillow over my head. They'll say anything in order to get this done. And I'm not trying to be like rude or cruel or anything, but literally I can't tell you how many times people have said that to me. So, like, really, it's not just about, do you recognize your daughter or not? And that tells you whether you're capable of mating. It's about, is there a general understanding of what their wishes are that have continued to proceed through this period of time, and they understand the differences? Yeah.
What if, consider a person who does not have a disease that is going to end their life immediately?
Okay. Like what?
Something that causes a great deal of pain,
Yeah.
either psychologically or physically,
Yeah.
but isn't going to kill you.
That's track 2. I don't do track 2. Track 2 is for people who do not have a reasonable, foreseeable natural death, but who have requested me. And those are people who require a lot more evaluation. There is a longer waiting period. I think it's 3 months. They need a psychiatrist involved. It's something that is generally an entirely different spectrum than people with reasonably foreseeable natural deaths. Yeah.
How many tracks are there?
Just those 2. The reasonably foreseeable and the non-reasonably foreseeable. That's it. Yeah.
Do you provide any translator?
I'm sorry?
For any translator?
You provide.
Translation. Yes. So there is a program actually called the Language Line in Ontario, and you can call the Language Line and you can actually have a translator, or if you're getting community supports, you can get the community care program to give you a phone number that can get a translator. I cannot tell you how many times I've called a translator and actually put them on my speakerphone, and I would talk to the patient through the translator, and we were able to do any type of palliative care assessment. Yeah.
What are the regulations and other provinces?
I don't actually know, I have to be honest with you, but they're pretty much the same, because the rules are like, what are the rules in other provinces? The medical assistance in dying is legal in Canada. So every province is required to have some system that provides MAID. And the eligibility is generally all the same across Canada. You have to be 18, you have to be a resident of the province, you have to have these criteria. How you access it in different provinces might be different than Ontario, but it is eligible. Everybody should have the opportunity to choose that if that's what they want. Yep.
Is MAID the only institution that does this program, like facilitate someone with assisted dying? Is there another?
MAID is actually just medical assistance in dying. It's not, in fact, a program. So there is a MAID service in Ontario that will provide you with the names of doctors who do MAID. But MAID itself is not the program, MAID is the procedure. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It facilitates someone to get assistance in dying.
Correct.
So you don't have to go through MAID, you're saying now you can get a doctor to...
MAID is through a doctor or a nurse practitioner.
So it could be a doctor as well.
Pardon me?
It could be without MAID, but with your doctor.
MAID is the procedure.
Yeah.
So you are getting medical assistance in dying, and it is done by a doctor or a nurse. You can find, if you find any doctor in the province who is willing to do MAID for you, you can get it done. You can find any nurse practitioner in the province who wants to do MAID for you, you can get it done. You just need 2 doctors to do it in the province. And anybody who finds it can do it. You don't have to call the Ontario MAID service to get MAID. You can go to any doctor who does it. Yeah. The problem is, it's not easy to go up to a doctor and say, by the way, do you do MAID, right? And so the easiest way to do it is to actually call the MAID service, and they can actually give you the names of the people who can do the assessment for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have recently had a friend, I came back from my vacation, and he wrote me a letter that.
So there's well, I'll tell you in a second. I'll repeat, okay?
He told me that he's gonna get some medical assistance for dying.
Yeah.
And he told me that, and he gave me like a week to know.
Yeah.
And I said, you must be crying for help. Please call me back immediately.
Yeah.
And he said, I will be gone by Sunday. And he did call me back.
Yeah.
And I think, and looking back at our time together, he fought to get a license. His license was taken away.
Yeah.
And he fought for about a year and a half. He fell on his head.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't allow him to drive anymore. And that was very debilitating for
Yeah.
him to have that, to know about that.
Yeah.
So he got that established. He sold his car prior to that.
Yeah.
Now he went to buy a car. It was on loan. And he showed me the car before I went away on vacation.
Yeah.
And I can't understand. He made
Come
a
talk to
fine
me
car
after.
in
Okay.
such a short time.
Come talk